Today's video contains extensive story spoilers for the excellent game Horizon Zero Dawn. If you intend to play the game, I highly recommend that you do so before watching today's video. By the mid-21st century, mankind has made incredible scientific advancements, particularly in the areas of robotics and programming. True AI has existed since at least 2044, though is regulated out of use, and by 2055, the United States military is nearly totally automated. Although various large robotic and manufacturing corporations compete for lucrative military contracts, Pharaoh Automated Solutions, led by the infinitely ambitious Ted Pharaoh, dominates the industry, supplying the majority of the world's automated defense solutions. FAS's most notable product is the Chariot line of robots, which integrate prior successes in the areas of efficiency, weaponry, and sustainability into several hyper-advanced war machines. Robots of the Chariot line sport several key features. First, protection against hacking and electronic warfare. Chariot machine operating systems and inter-machine communications are encrypted with state-of-the-art technology and held to what was referred to as the Black Quartz standard. Machine intelligences are protected by polyphasic waveform encryption, which meant brute forcing remote access into a Pharaoh machine was impossible within a human lifespan, even when using a supercomputer. So, while a Chariot machine would respond to authorized orders, they could not have their intelligences otherwise manipulated. Coding in a rogue order, for example, would be difficult to the point of impossibility. Backdoors were also not included within the robot OSs, most likely because FAS sold products to warring factions and wanted to remove any perceived conflicts of interest or weaknesses. Second, we have the swarm feature. Chariots typically fought in swarms, i.e. large groups of machines which operated cohesively. Swarms were often led by commander machines and supported by a great number of smaller platforms. Next, we have independent refueling. Chariot machines were able to convert biomass into fuel, and this includes everything from plants to sentient beings. We learn, for example, that the Hearts Timor swarm, which we'll discuss in detail later, absorbed an endangered pod of dolphins in what was described as a blended milkshake of dolphin chung. This technique was supposed to be used only rarely, usually when a machine was to operate independently away from a home base for an extended period of time. The final key feature is survivability. Chariots were capable of printing new parts to repair damage. Their self-replication processes were so advanced that a single war droid could produce another. The Horus Chariot variant also produced a large foundry, which could continually pump out new machines at a great rate. When paired with its biomass converter processes, a single machine could theoretically birth an entire army. What's more, chariots could hack enemy machines and slave them to the swarm. This effectively made overly mechanized or automated resistance futile, and some of you might now see where this is going, and as Ted Pharaoh stated, had FAS paid attention to a century and a half of science fiction, the following could have been prevented. In October of 2064, a chariot swarm under the control of the Hearts Timor Energy Combine encountered a glitch. The glitch saw the swarm gain independence and refuse command from Hearts Timor. The full magnitude of this event was not immediately evident, and Ted Pharaoh attempted to effect a cover-up to negate a public relations disaster. This was the beginning of what would become known as the Pharaoh Plague, the beginning of the end. Without a coded backdoor, there was no easy way to stop the plague, which had developed a degree of self-awareness and a single-minded focus: survive and propagate. The swarm begins to consume all available biomatter and reproduces at an incredibly rapid rate, getting exponentially larger as units continue to birth new automatons. By the end of the month, Ted Pharaoh contacts former FAS employee Elizabeth Sodek, hoping she can help stop the swarm. Horrified, she realizes that the plague has already reached critical mass and cannot be stopped. Not only all human beings on Earth, but all biomass, leaving the planet a barren rock.
And at the rate it's replicating, Ted, it will strip the Earth bare in 15 months. We're not talking fall of civilization, we're talking extinction.
I get it, Liz. So how do I stop it while it's contained?
It's not contained, it can't be!
Elizabeth brings her findings to the United States government and convinces them of the reality of the situation. The Chariot line, and in particular the Horus War platforms, were far more advanced than any other mechanized or non-mechanized weapon available to humanity, even with Pharaoh Solutions drastically changing R&D and manufacturing to create weapons which could counter the swarm. The 1,000+ Horuses active on Earth likely alone would have been sufficient to overrun Earth's conventional military forces. However, the true harm came from the swarm's biomass converters and their machine replication, which had an almost gray goo effect, with matter being essentially turned into new combatants at an exponential rate. Biomass conversion and replication was no longer being limited to emergencies, and life on Earth was essentially being eaten away. There was no obvious solution to the Pharaoh Plague. Brute forcing a shutdown code, even with all of the world's supercomputers, would have taken hundreds of years. 0 Day, which represented the estimated destruction of all of the Earth's biomass, was projected as within 16 months. The establishment of colonies underwater or in space was also seen as non-viable. The Odyssey, however, an interstellar colony ship, was launched by the mysterious Far Zenith group, but was reportedly destroyed in an accident while leaving the solar system. The only hope for life on Earth was Project Zero Dawn, a top-secret undertaking headed by Dr. Sobek, financed by Pharaoh, and supported by the world's institutions. As Project Zero Dawn progressed, the militaries of the world mounted an Earth-wide defense against the machine swarm, known as Operation Enduring Victory. Enduring Victory saw not only the militaries of the Earth's governments, but also civilians take up arms against the plague. However, the goal was never to defeat the swarm, but simply delay it as Zero Dawn, which was said to be a superweapon, progressed. The Chariots, however, with their superior numbers and technology, routed humanity at nearly every turn as billions died against an endless onslaught of machines. The swarm moved across the planet like a wave, decimating everything in its path as the machines continued to reproduce. Unfortunately, because of the swarm's tech-jacking capabilities, automated weaponry could not be used against them, making the power disparity all that more severe. But what exactly was Zero Dawn? It wasn't a superweapon. That was a rumor spread to keep morale high among those fighting for enduring victory. And in reality, Zero Dawn would not save those living on the Earth. Rather, it was a hope for the future. The plan was incredible in scope. A fully automated artificial intelligence named Gaia would be created. Insulated from the plague, Gaia would work for hundreds of years, brute forcing the necessary codes to initiate a planet-wide shutdown of the Pharaoh machines. Then the work to repair the planet would begin. Alongside Gaia, buried across the planet were cauldrons, underground facilities, also insulated from the fighting, which would build a new generation of machines, which would terraform the planet. With the plague ended and Earth terraformed and suitable again for life, humans and other creatures would be reseeded. Gaia was designed with 9 sub-functions, which were to help manage individual processes along. Minerva, for example, was to create towers, which would send out machine deactivation codes, while Poseidon and Ether were tasked with healing the oceans and atmosphere respectively, returning them to their healthy states. There were 2 sub-functions which I think deserve some special attention. Apollo, one of humanity's most ambitious projects, was an archiving of all knowledge, from scientific discoveries to human culture and history. Apollo was meant to kickstart the first generation of mankind, not only returning the species to a comparable level of sophistication, but ensuring that similar extinction events could be avoided in the future. Apollo can be seen as a professor, which would guide the next generation of humans through their education, preparing them for the new world. The second notable subfunction is the Hades Protocol. In a perfect scenario, Hades would have remained dormant. Its role was to essentially reverse the terraforming process if something went wrong. It would have essentially reset the planet so Gaia could start again. The best of the best from around the world were selected for the Zero Dawn project. Many, unable to cope with the existential dread associated with creating a future they'd never see, chose euthanization instead of working on the project. Nonetheless, enough minds were found to fill out the primary, secondary, and tertiary leadership tiers within the project. a hierarchy which led to workers referred to as alphas, betas, or gammas. Through an incredible effort, Gaia's subroutines were finished before 0 day. This was thanks to the sacrifice of almost all of humanity, who threw themselves at the swarm as part of enduring victory. Without their effort, extinction would have happened much earlier. In the final days, Earth's atmosphere was so compromised that environmental suits were needed to survive outside. Many billions had died, and those survived suffered immensely, with perhaps mere hours remaining before the planet was totally overrun. Gaia and her components were shut off from the world, giving the Earth a second chance. Gamma and Beta Zero Dawn teams were allowed to enter Elysium, a small bunker, which was sustainable for a century. Many chose suicide instead, while those who did enter were sterilized to ensure resource sufficiency. Unfortunately, Gaia was not quite complete by the time the bunker closed, so the Alphas were forced to remain within her housing, finishing up the project. Still, Zero Dawn had been effective. Humanity, and indeed the Earth, was set for a golden recovery, but something went wrong. Life did return to the planet, but humanity was not able to achieve its pre-apocalypse level of advancement, and aggressive machines now roam the landscape. The first blow to humanity was the destruction of the Apollo knowledge reserves. Ted Pharaoh, one of the Alphas, and remember, the architect of the apocalypse, deleted Apollo, believing that the knowledge was a disease, which would lead to another extinction event. After the purge, he murdered the other Alphas. It's likely that in deleting the knowledge, he hoped to hide his involvement in the death of the planet. It is possible that another copy of Apollo exists somewhere. However, the point is that as humanity was regrown, the first generation was not educated as they should have been. The second blow came later, a millennia after the Earth's death, and after new civilizations were established. A mysterious signal was sent to Gaia, which unleashed her subordinate functions, including, notably, Hades. This had two effects. First, the formerly peaceful and docile machines, which had helped terraform the world, suddenly became aggressive. Second, the Hades subroutine has gone rogue and has set out to reverse Gaia's terraforming, its one programmed function. Knowing that Hades would attempt to access the advanced terraforming sub-processes housed in her facility, Gaia self-destructed. However, Hades managed to create a code which unbound the processes and allowed them to escape. Hades now seeks control over the Spire, one of several connected and planet-spanning transmission towers. He hopes to activate the Pharaoh swarm, which was buried and deactivated as the planet was terraformed, and reset the planet through their destructive potential. Currently, Hades has reactivated several caches of machines and tricked human tribes into doing his bidding. Hades' success would mean a final death for the planet. No living embryos or seeds remain in reserve to repopulate Earth, and Gaia no longer exists to guide any terraforming efforts. As a final action, Gaia, the god of this new world, gestates a hidden clone of Elizabeth Sodek. This clone, who was found by the Nora tribe, raised by an expelled warrior, and named Aloy, has access to all of Gaia's facilities and subroutines, and represents the best hope of not only humanity, but all living things, against the efforts of Hades, and a return to darkness. Until next time, may the Force and All-Mother be with you.